I was born at Kempsey on the Macleay River on the north coast. I attended school at infants and primary at a little place called Fredericton. We moved to Kempsey and I went to Kempsey High School. My parents were very emphatic that I had to go right through school and finish. Not many went to the leaving certificate in those days. They sacrificed a great deal with a low income, I guess, to make sure that we all had every chance to get the highest of educations. There was no one in the Battle family, and there was a lot of the Battle family up and down the river of the Macleay had ever been to a university. I had no idea of a university, my parents didn't either. I finished the leaving certificate, got a reasonable kind of a pass, and I didn't know what to do, so I went into the Macleay Co-op as an office boy there, and was quite satisfied that that would be the rest of my life in that particular business. But someone, and I don't know who, had entered me for the Commonwealth scholarships, and lo and behold, I suddenly was told by someone in the office at that shop that my name was in the Herald list of the Commonwealth scholarships. It was such a shock. I didn't know what it meant, where I would go, what would happen, how it would happen, and so on. But as it turned out, with the Commonwealth scholarship and my parents having a fairly low income, my mother didn't work, of course, in those days, and the Commonwealth scholarship was able, as we went into it, we found out, supplied all of my needs for university fees, plus board, plus some living allowance as well. It was a great scholarship. It stipulated I had to go to Armidale, though. You understand, we were only just school children, and just out of school, 16-year-old. I had no experience of being on my own. I hadn't travelled anywhere. I'd never been to Sydney or any other such places. And to come to Armidale and go to the university was an absolutely tremendous experience for me. I had not imagined anything like it, and I was greatly impressed, of course. There were only 200 students in the whole of the university. See, it wasn't a university, it was a university college. It was a branch of Sydney University. It was a move by Sydney University to have a rural outpost. It was made up of young people roughly of my age or a bit older. Things were well underway by the time I was there. The students all knew each other, and I didn't know most of them, and I had to fit in. So the whole of the first year was a blur to me, so much so that I failed one of my subjects in the first year. I did English, history, Latin and English, and philosophy, the four: English, history, Latin, philosophy. I failed English, my favourite subject. The whole thing just went too quickly for me. I didn't really reach my feet on the ground enough to get a hang of it. I had no idea what I wanted to be, no idea where I would be going. I just revelled in the situation. As the year went on, I found everything, the company, the university life, the lecturers and everything else, absolutely wonderful. Couldn't get enough of it in the end. The uni consisted of three buildings: Boolamimba, Belshaw and Booth. They were the only three buildings for the university. There were only 200 students in the whole university, 200. I took Latin, and for example, Latin, certainly in the third year, there were only 6 students doing it. And they all did either arts or science degrees. There were no other degrees offered. We all had to wear gowns through the whole time, to lectures, to meals, and you'd often see us sitting out on the lawns on our gowns and so on. They were very handy things to have. We had our own sporting teams, our own SRC, Student Representative Council. We had our own different kinds of organisations. We made our own recreation, our own social life. The science and the arts people all combined together. We mixed freely together, men and women, and no college existed when we were there at all. We lived in town, in townhouses, and were bussed out to the university every day and back home to some very nice old Armidale houses that we lived in with a matron in charge of it, and there'd be about a dozen students in each house. And we spent our nights there and weekends if we wanted to, or we mostly went back out to the uni anyway. We lived fairly isolated lives, really. We made our own life out there altogether. None of us, one person who lived in Armidale and was a little bit older had a car. No one else had a car. Some of us had push bikes, so we lived out all day, all week out at the university. If you wanted to go into the town, you either had to get a taxi or ride a bike in. It's about 7 k's out of Armidale in those days. There was a close interconnection between students and lecturers always. You could always meet a lecturer out on the southern lawns or somewhere or other, sit down and have a talk about your assignments, and there was a close interchange of views between the staff and the students. A wonderfully close personal relationship all the time with some very, very intelligent and very well educated staff. The Chancellor, Vice Chancellor, Madgwick, was a wonderful man who had a close eye on all the students, a very fine man. We didn't know him really that personally, although he knew us by name and he would talk to us and so on, but had the welfare of the university becoming independent very much at heart. They all took a very keen interest in us as students. I mean, I can remember again and again Professor Letters, for example, the Latin professor, wandering down while we were having morning tea in the southern lawn and coming up to me, a lovely man he was. Oh, Mr. Battle, can I just trouble you for a moment? Your last Latin composition, there's a couple of things there I want to talk to you about. So we go over and sit under a tree and he talked to me about it. And we knew them as personal level. I would go to I would be invited to one of the families of the lecturers in town at times for a meal or whatever. Socially, we played tennis with some of them at times. But in learning, if you had a problem with any subject, you could just go to the lecturer straight away and he'd be there ready to talk to you for any length of time. And it was very conducive to learning. But not only learning your own subject, but the whole wide world of learning was opened up to us. To me, it was an ideal university-type life. And I rather am sorry for those who have to do university by long distance and haven't had the chance to mix. It was a place where learning was going on all the time. The day I was leaving after 40 years at Tamworth High School, the children in the local newspaper at the school asked me that same question, why did you go into teaching? And I would have to say, I don't know, I just went into it. After 3 years, the Commonwealth Scholarship ceased. I didn't know what to do with an arts degree. There didn't seem to be much opportunity at that time around. Arts people didn't know what they were doing. So the only thing I could look around to do, and I wanted to stay another year at uni, I didn't want to leave it under any circumstances. So the only thing I could think of doing was to get a Teachers College scholarship. So I applied for a Teachers College scholarship, and that more or less meant that I went into teaching then. And I remained in that for the next 40 years after that. I did my leaving certificate in 1951. I arrived at the uni in 52. I did 53, 54, and got my degree then. I did a DipEd, Diploma of Education, in 55 and graduated in 55. We got quite a shock when we were told in 55 that we are now a separate university. it didn't mean anything to us really, except that we knew that the graduation was coming up in 55. This was at the end of 54. And we would have to decide where we were going to graduate from the alma mater, the Sydney University, or from the new child, UNE. The science people mostly decided to take Sydney University because they wanted the extra kudos of having such a great university behind them when they applied for science jobs in mining companies and all those kind of things. The arts people, well, we were split halfway. It turned out that there were only going to be 7 people graduating in arts in 1955. 19 or so went to Sydney. The Chancellor of Sydney University, Sir Charles Bickett and Blackburn, came up to award the degrees to those who had decided to go Sydney. Sir Earl Page, the new Chancellor of the new university, came and awarded the degrees to those who decided to go UNE. And as I say, there were only 7 of us. The arts were first, as it so happened, and they were in alphabetical order. There was a boy called Ormond, A-double-L, started with. He was going to be the first. And then at the last moment, Peter, his name was as well, decided to go to Sydney Uni instead. So suddenly I became the first on the alphabetical list. So my moment of greatness occurred purely by chance. I think the newspaper article here from the local Armidale paper said prolonged ovation met the first graduate, Mr. P. Battle. Prolonged ovation. I remember quite clearly after it was all over, a certain lady who was in charge of our students on a welfare level, she came up to me, and of course I was all buoyed up with the great cheering and so on, everyone, and it was the first graduate. And she came up and said to me, of course, Mr. Butler, you know the ovation was really for the fact that you were first, don't you?